So the inspiration for my backsplash was a photo I found on the website. It had an interesting shape in it, and so I'm going to use this as the guideline. What I ended up doing was something a little bit more symmetrical with a set of glass tile, and then I used a stainless inset around that glass tile. Let's look at how to do that. The easiest way to create this backsplash is in an elevation view. I'm going to open up our existing elevation by double-clicking on that and going into the elevation view and using a tool called Custom Backsplash. And I'm just going to come in here roughly and create a square backsplash. And I'm going to then pull that over to the edge. The reason that I didn't snap it in the beginning is it will create extra breaks where it touches the cabinets. And I don't want those extra breaks in this line right now. Breaks are created using the brake tool. You can find the brake tool down here in your menu in the lower section of your screen. It's also got a shortcut key of the number 3 on the keyboard. So the first brake I'm going to put in here is roughly down here towards the bottom. And now I have the particular shape with a straight line that I now want to edit. Using the number 3 on the keyboard for the shortcut of brake, I'm just going to come in here and place a few random breaks. Each one of these line segments now can be curved. There's a curve tool down here, change line to arc. And once I do that, I can highlight this diamond, I can pull it down, and I usually hold the control key down. That allows me to override the snapping and create the exact shape that I'm after. Let's go ahead and curve this one, and finally we'll curve this one. Now each one of these curves you can edit and get the details about that by opening up and going to the selected arc panel. You'll notice that you get a radius. Let's go ahead and square that up at 28 inches. And you can also get other information, and you can overlay that on your design to give it to your fabricator. An example of that, let me just pull up a different view here. An example of that is in this steam shower. I actually used a tool very similar to the custom backsplash. It's a polyline solid to create this shape of the shower. You'll notice that what I've done here is I've done callouts for each of the radius and chords and put it in a corresponding table. So if you want to get to that level of detail, you can open up each line segment and get the data that you're after. Now the next section of the backsplash, let's come in here and create that shape that we're after. We'll pull that over to the edge of the cabinet and then down approximately. And it looks like I need to go up just a little bit further. Now again, I'm going to press the number 3 on the keyboard here. And before I do that, let's go ahead and pull that up. Now I've got the shape that I'm after. Using the number 3 on the keyboard now, press the number 3 and create a few breaks. Highlight this line segment, convert it to an arc. Same thing in this case, and finally the last one. And now what I can do is hold my control key down and create the exact shape that I'm after. So now you can see all I have to do is the final backsplash. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to draw it just in this area. Now the reason I didn't overlap it to begin with is it will actually place it on top of that, and I want it to be behind it. I could adjust that later by going into the plan view and pulling it over, but this will work just as well. So let's just pull this over, and that looks pretty good. Again, I'm not being too exact with this for this presentation. Let's press the brake key and we'll pull this section down right in this area, and it looks like I need to pull that over just a little bit. And if I double click on that, I'm going to change the thickness of this layer from 3/4 to 3/8. This is going to be a stainless steel insert. The tile will be 3/4, and now I've got that insert right here. Using the material eyedropper, I'm going to select the stainless off the hood and apply it onto the insert behind the two tiles. Now the final step is to open up the library, find our glass tile. Let's scroll down into the bonus category, find our glass tile category. And I'm looking for something like, let's try this yellow mix. I'm going to apply it to this tile and this lower tile. Close the library browser up, and that's how we create our custom backsplash. This segment is the bathtub and platform for the Parabola Master Bath. If you've been following along in our design, we've reached the point where we want to create our tub and our tub platform, and then the next video will actually address that wraparound bench you see. In the program, what we want to do is, in the library, I'm going to grab one of my bathtubs and we're just going to place that roughly into the area that we want near that window. So we'll grab our bathtub here, and I'm just going to roughly place that in the center of the window. Just to make sure, let's use our center tool, center it, and I'm just going to pull it out here a little bit. So I've got my tub placed, and if we double click on the tub, you can see that the top height is 22 inches, and that's from the finished floor. So I'm going to use the same tool that we used earlier in the video to create our mirror, and it's called the Polyline Solid. I'm just going to come around here roughly and highlight that. Let's turn on our temporary dimension tool. Let's highlight our dimension here, and I'm going to set that dimension to be roughly, let's set it to be 47 inches. And I'm going to pull my tub back here just a little bit. I need extra room because I want symmetry between this space, which should be about 6 inches, and the edge of our wall over here, which should be about 6 inches when we finalize our wall elevation. So with that platform in place, let's open that up, and the elevation at the top, let's set that to be 23 inches and the thickness to be 23 inches. The reason I'm using 23 is that's going to go down to the subfloor, which is 7/8 of an inch, and that will realistically actually put it 1/8 of an inch above the tub. Let's select OK, and let's take a 3D view so you can see what we have going on. Use my camera here. You won't be able to see the tub when I take this 3D view because we just encapsulated it in a big block. Well, you can see part of it. And let's tile our views here. So the next step I want to do is use the exact same tool, and I'm draw a marquee around the tub. Select that component and mark it to have a hole so it will cut it out. So now you can see that platform. Now the next thing I'm going to do, because I want a 1 inch or a 1/2 inch overhang, is and I also want a different material on the top of the tub platform. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the original Polyline Solid that we created for that platform, and I'm going to copy that in place. You won't see actually anything happen when I click that. And now I'm going to drag this out, and as I'm dragging it out, I'm just going to press the Tab key. And while I press the Tab key, all I have to do is enter in the amount that I want that overhang. So in this case, let's put in a 1/2 inch and select OK. So if you zoom in, you'll see that that overhang is just slightly over the top of it. And I'm going to double click on it, and now I'm going to set the elevation of that to be 23 and 3/4, and we'll change this to also be 3/4 of an inch thick. That's now going to give me a lip that I can apply a different material on. And using our material eyedropper in a 3D view, let's grab the material off the sink. We'll click it on the top of that element, and then let's go into our library and let's find a matching tile that's smaller in the Dell Tile catalog. I believe is where I got the original one. So let's scroll down into the Dell Tile catalog, and it should be ceramic, emblem, and here's their mosaic tile. Let's grab that material and we'll apply it to that tub platform. Let's broaden our 3D view here, close our library. And if you zoom in, you can see our tub and the cutout for it. Now the next thing is, in the library, let's go ahead and place, let's go into our plan view. Let's place our sink faucet. And I've saved that favorite sink faucet down here in my library. So once I find my tub faucet, let's just zoom out here. Press F6 on the keyboard, and then I'll use my scroll wheel on the mouse. Click and place our faucet. Now this tub has a requirement for an access panel. And I'm going to turn on the framing layer so we can see our framing for the wall. I want our access panel to go in one of these two bays. Being able to show framing is a premier feature. If you're using interiors, you can just simply draw a CAD box where that framing may be. I'm going to use the box tool, and I'm going to come in here and create our access panel. Let me highlight that element, and let's put a fill in it. And I'm going to use a horizontal hatch, and I just accept the defaults. Now you can see that fill, and the next thing to do is to put a call out so I can put my floor plan notes together. And I'm going to change that to be a little bit larger number. Let's go ahead and set that to be 4 inches because I'm going to do this at half-inch scale. And with my footnotes, my floor plan notes, I'm going to put on the plan in a subsequent video for the construction drawings. I'll be able to refer to that access panel and that footnote for the tub. Now the final step for the tub platform is to create our niche that surrounds the back wall. And I'm going to use the same process that I did for the vanity if you were watching earlier. In the wall elevation, we'll use the backsplash tool here. And I'm going to come in and snap on the top of the soffit, and I'm just going to draw it down a little ways. If I highlight the edge here and turn on my temporary dimensions, I can then click on the exact dimension that I want and enter that in. I'm going to set it to be 8 inches. And then I'll just pull that down to the top of the tub platform and change the thickness of this to be 8 inches. And then using the copy and then reflect about tool, we can come in here and move that to the other side. At the top, we'll create our next backsplash, snap it into place, and as I'm scrolling down here, I'm just going to press the tab key, and I'm going to replace that bottom dimension with an 8, save myself one extra step on the dimensions, double click on it, and change the thickness to 8 inches. Now I can switch gears and go back into the camera view over here. So now you can see the niche in 3D, and I guess the last step that I'm going to show in the process is adding a few accessories. It looks pretty good now, but here's a tip. If you're going out to your client site, you have your phone on you. Most of those would have a camera. Grab a photo of the client's lot if you find a good shot to take, and then you can drop that into the backdrop. I've got my own collection here, and underneath my backdrops you can choose from a variety that I've taken. So all you have to do is create your own backdrops folder and then just import those in. And I'm going to grab a photo that I took earlier, and once I click on that, all I have to do is come over here and click inside the window and click and place that. And you can then customize that to your client's project and really kind of help make it more personal and get them emotionally involved, and may help you sell the job a little quicker. The other thing is to add accessories. You'll find in the library in Chief Architect core and bonus catalogs. In my core catalogs, my bonus catalogs, I've downloaded a handful of items off of the chiefarchitect.com website and the 3D library. Not all of them, just a few. But one of the things is just to add some accessories. If I grab one of our elements here, you get a preview of it. You can simply click and place that if I can get the right angle on it. And then I've also got some artwork, and you can go out to websites something like art.com and grab different art. If I click and place one of these elements on the wall, let's see if I can pull that down here. Just slide that down here a little bit. And let's see if I've got a different piece of art. So here's a different piece of art that I grabbed, and what I've done there is just placed a picture frame in there, and then I can apply a different piece of artwork in there. Maybe it's a particular genre that is of interest to your client. And now you can finish that up. You can ray trace the image, and then the next step that we're going to do is to explore the shower and creating the niches in there. And the very first segment that we'll address is creating that wrap around bench that goes through the shower and attaches into the tub platform. So that'll be in our next video segment. This is the 7th segment, creating the shower and wraparound bench for the Parabola Master Bath project. And the topic that we're addressing is the shower and wraparound bench. And to begin with, we'll start with the wraparound bench, and then we'll look at creating the niche in the shower. And with the niche in the shower, the client has given us a photo with some ideas. And this is the beginning of the process of design. The photo had 3 niches, and the client wanted to do that in the shower with a similar look. So we're using that as a design guideline, and you can see in the rendering what we actually came up with. So let's go ahead and get started in the program. To create that bench, I'm going to use the same tool that we used to create the tub platform, which is the Polyline Solid tool. And I'm going to come in here and create our shape. Let's go ahead and highlight our dimension. We'll set that to be 14 inches. And then I want this to wrap around, and using the number 3 on my keyboard, or there's a break command down here called break line. You'll see the 3 after that. Click that, and we'll just click a break, and we'll just pull that into the second line there. And we'll pull that down and snap it in. So again, I'll highlight this edge and set that same dimension at 14 inches. And now I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and the elevation at the top was 23 inches for the tub platform, so we'll match that. And then the thickness of our bench, I'm going to put that at 4 inches. So the next step is, remember on the tub platform we had a different material similar to this photo here, different material on the tub platform than the material below. And I'm going to create a copy of that platform we just drew, and then I'm going to put a 1 inch or ½ inch overhang on it. So let's go ahead and use the copy in place tool. Let me turn off my temporary dimension so it doesn't get too noisy. So copy in place, you won't be able to tell what happened, but it now copied that in place. And I'm going to pull this up, and as I pull that up, I'm just going to go ahead and put in a ½ inch. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. Pull that over, press the tab key, and I'll put in a ½ inch. So you can see that overlap in there. And the only thing I need to do now is change the thickness of this element. So we're going to raise that up by a 3/4 of an inch, and then the thickness of this would be 3/4 of an inch. Now what I want to do is create a radius on that so we can get rid of that point. And I'm going to use a 6-inch radius with our fillet tool. Click on the fillet tool, and if you click on that again, it will give you the distance of the radius, which I've already entered in there. And now all I have to do is click on the other edge, and that will create the radius. So we'll do the exact same thing on the other element. Click on the edge, click on the fillet tool, click on the opposite edge, and it will create that. Now let's go ahead and zoom in. You'll notice that it's not quite symmetrical. So what I want to do is let's use our line tool here, and let's draw a line that, and again, let's just see if we can press our tab key. I'll just mark this to be a polar distance, and then we'll put in a ½ inch. So I have a ½ inch line here, and remember the distance between here and here is a ½ inch. So I'm going to grab this outer radius, and I'm just going to snap that into place right there. And then I'll just delete that line because it's just temporary. Now let's go into our 3D view using our camera here, and we'll just generally point and click in that direction. And you see the integrated bench now. Using the material eyedropper, click on the top of the tub platform and the top of our bench, and we'll do the same thing for the lower part of the platform and click and apply that. Now to support the corner of that, I'm going to go into the library from the plan view. It'll be easier to place it. I'm going to enter in here a tapered column, hit search, find the column that we're after, and that's pretty large. Let's go ahead and modify that. Set the height to be something like 23 inches by 4 inches on the width and depth. Now we can position that appropriately. Go back to our 3D view, and I'm just going to rotate around here just a little bit so we can grab the color off of the cabinet using the material eyedropper, and I'll click and apply that to the column. Let's rotate back around. Now the next step is let's put a tile on all of our walls and work our way around and create the shower. So let's go ahead and close things up here and go back into our plan view. There we go. And I'm going to begin with just using a wall elevation on the wall that we created our bench on. And in the wall elevation, I'm going to use our backsplash tool, and I'm just going to click and place it. It will place a backsplash on the entire wall. Now this backsplash, you'll notice there's some marquee lines. You can pull that down if it's a shower that you don't want. Hit escape. A shower that you don't want the tile to go all the way up, and so you can modify that. Let's close that view and go and take a view of our shower fixture wall. So just go in and do the opposite wall here, and let's place our fixtures on this wall. First, in the library, let's place our fixtures, and I want to do a search for a grab bar, and we'll want to find a wall mount grab bar. Let's grab that and we'll place that, highlight it, double click on it, and we'll be more precise with the dimensions, but let's go ahead and set that to be 36 and 7/8. It'll just make it a little quicker when we do this off the floor. And now what I want to do, let's clear our search, and I've saved some of my favorites down here for my bath short list. And I want to grab a valve. Let's go ahead and place our valve in this area right here, and then we'll grab our shower head. Scroll down here, find the matching shower head, and I'll just place that roughly in that area. Now I'm going to highlight the shower head, use my center tool, and center that on the faucet, so when we do our dimensions I can do both of those at the same time. Close our library. Now I'll use the automatic dimension tool, place the dimensions. I'm going to highlight both the valve and the faucet, and I'm going to set that dimension by clicking on it. We'll enter in 22 inches. And then I'm going to use the centerline dimension and create a vertical centerline. Let's just draw that dimension down through here. I'll pull it off to the side, and let's just pull that over. And I want to click on the faucet and select this dimension. I want to set that to be 6 inches. And I'm going to do the same thing for the faucet head. I'm going to highlight the dimension. I'm going to set that to be 36. And now I'm going to highlight both the valve and faucet. I want 2 sets of these in the shower. Use the copy tool, and I'm going to slide over. And as I'm sliding over, I want that to be exactly 24 inches. Set that up. And now I'm going to use my dimension. Click on this. Notice the extra diamond right here. Just pull that over here. And you'll notice that above this dimension there is no CL because I added that later. Let's go ahead and double click on that dimension and make that change underneath the extensions. You'll notice the 1, 2, 3, 4 correlates with the numbers above the dimension strings. The dimension string that I want to change is number 2. Highlight that, mark it as a center line, select OK. Some people like to have their centerline dimensions come down towards the fixture, so I'll just pull those both down using my crosshairs to make the alignment. I'm also going to move this centerline off of the faucet and move it to the grab bar. And then let's highlight the grab bar, and I'm going to set that to be 32 inches off that wall. Now the final thing that we need to do is just place the tile on here. Again, we're going to use the same tool that we did on the previous wall. Custom backsplash, just click on the wall since we want the entire wall covered. Notice my grab bar got covered up a little bit. That backsplash that we placed was a 1/2 inch. I'll adjust that in my plan view and make that look accurate. Back into the plan view to move those items out just past the backsplash. First thing is I'm going to turn off my object snaps over here on the right hand side of your screen. Click that. Now I'm going to draw a marquee around these elements here. You'll notice that it says 6 elements are selected in the bottom left hand screen. Now all I have to do is click on this and pull that out so that it then touches the outside of that backsplash. Now that wall elevation will be accurate. Now for the final wall in the shower, let's zoom out here a little bit. In the rendering, this is what we've come up with. We want 3 niches. That was derived from the photo the client provided. That was the niches really above the bathtub. So we're going to go ahead and repeat that process. And to do that, let's use a slightly different tool because I want to show a little bit more detail with this. With an wall elevation, when we do our niches, you won't be able to see the full detail because it will end at the wall and not go all the way through the wall. So instead of the wall elevation, I'm going to use a tool called the back clip cross section. And I'm going to come out here and just cut a section through this part of our model. And what that's going to do is it's going to show us all of the platforms that exist. Now I don't have a roof on here, but you can see that I do have a foundation and I do have the floor framing and part of the wall framing in here as well. In fact, let's click Auto Detail and let's just move our insulation off the top of that, and we'll scroll in here a little bit. Now to begin with, a wall niche is usually created using one of our tools under Windows called a pass-through. So I'm going to click on this and click on the pass-through. And now when I place this, what's going to happen is you're going to actually see the studs exposed into the wall. And since this is a remodel project, I want to modify this so that it fits exactly in between those studs, and I'll position that more accurately in the plan view. But to begin with, let's highlight that window and let's go through the changes that we need to make on it. And we'll begin at the very top here. So those studs are 16 inches on center. So that means that the width in between that is 14.5 inches. That's what I'm going to set that opening to be. On the height, that was a pretty large height for the niche, but we're going to set it at 28 inches. And then the floor to bottom, I want that above my grab bar, so I'm going to leave that at 42 inches, floor to bottom. Let's take a look at the options. That's okay. Casing, we don't want any casing on either side, so we'll remove that. Lintel, sill, remove the exterior sill. And then on the frame. Now the frame, I want that to be about 1/8 of an inch because that will then show the tile inlay in there. And select OK. Now those are the main changes that we need to make for that window. And all I need to do now is return back into the plan view and position that accurately. Let's just use Shift F6 on the keyboard. And you can see it over here on the right hand side in our plan view. And position that correctly, what I need to do is go into our layer control here and turn on our framing. I'll press F on the keyboard to skip down to the F's. Find our wall framing. There it is. And we'll turn that layer on. And I'm also going to turn on, well, that's good for now. And now you can see where those studs are. So let's go ahead and highlight that window. I'm going to turn on my object snaps again. And let's just slide that over and place. Now I'm going to highlight that window and let's zoom out here a little bit. I want to create 3 copies of that and put it in between the bays of the other framing members. So using the multiple copy tool, let's set that to copy every 16 inches on center. So I'm just going to slide that over and let that slide right into the bay. And now that creates 3 copies inside of there. Now the next thing we need to do, you'll notice in the back clip cross section you can actually see right through those windows. And that's the advantage of using the back clip cross section versus the wall elevation, because you would not be able to see on the back side of it. So with the wall niche, what we need to do is put a backer behind it. And I'm going to use a polyline solid to create that backer. Let's just zoom in here a little bit. Using polyline solid tool, let's come in here and we'll just roughly create that backer. And then I'm going to have to position that to be accurate in my plan view. You see where it drew it in the plan view? And let's just turn off, well, let's just slide that into place down here. Sometimes you may have to pull the control key down. And I'm not going to worry too much about exactly where it goes, but I am going to try to make sure that it's positioned somewhat in the middle of that wall. Now, let me take a 3D overhead shot of this so you can see what we have. So you can see on the back side of it, first of all, we'll need to solve that, but on the inside, if we rotate around, you can see what we have for the niche. So let's use our material painter, pick up the color off of the floor and apply that. It looks like I grabbed the glass instead. Let's undo that and grab our material. So let me just hit undo here. I don't want glass niche, although that might be interesting. So let's grab the material off of the floor and apply it on there. And then if you want to apply it onto the frame, we can just come around here, click it onto the frame, and that's actually 2 components that we need to get, or we can change it for the whole object with the material painter. And we'll just come in here and make that change. So that's why I left that frame at 1/8 of an inch, so I could actually paint that. Now, if we rotate around, what we need to do now, let me just make sure this doesn't spin too much. What we need to do now is actually cover that area up. And so back in the plan view, I'm just going to make a copy of that polyline solid that we had. I'm going to press the tab key to get into it. Copy in place. And then I'm just going to now pull that back, and all I need to do is actually change the material. And let's just make that a little bit bigger. There we go. And then back into the 3D view, let's use our material eyedropper and fix that. So the material eyedropper, and we'll paint that last component and make it seamless. So that's kind of how you create the shower niche. Now, if you want to accessorize it, let's take a look at that. In the library, what I've done is I've gone through and collected a bunch of elements, and then I've blocked them together. You can see the preview of them down here. So I've gone through individually out of the bonus library items and maybe items that I've imported, and I've created those, and I'm going to just place those in my plan view, and then let's rotate them around to be the right orientation, and then we'll just slide those into the niche. And this is a good example of anything that you've done much work on. Block them, save them into your library, and it'll give you a jump start on completing your design work. Now, a couple more things here that we want to explore. In the library, let's go ahead and grab one of our toilets and place that in the room. Scroll back up here and find a toilet. And I'm just going to click and place that in the room. Let's slide over here and make sure that it's centered. Let's use our center tool and center that in the room. And let's broaden the elevation view, close the library. And the first thing you're going to notice in this section view is the floor framing is going to be a problem, right, for that toilet. And this is nice and helpful so you can avoid issues when you actually get into the field and change orders that maybe you're responsible for instead of the client, since it should have been caught early on. And what I do, let me split my screen here, is you'll notice I have my wall framing layer on. And if you go down to the level below here on the basement, and let me turn on my floor framing on this level. So F on the keyboard, find our floor joists. We'll just turn those on, and you can actually see those. And so you can toggle that layer on and off. Let's turn those back off because I want to show you a little trick that I do. Go ahead and go back up a level. It's called reference floors, and it's a tool that you can get a shortcut to over here on the right hand side. You can also press F9 on the keyboard. Let's explore before I actually press that key. If you double click on the floor number here, change floor reference, if you double click on that, you can define that reference display set. And what I've done here is I've created a copy of that, and I've called it the reference display for kitchen and bath. And if you go in there and look at the different layers you can turn on or off, the very top layer that I have is the floor joists. So that's marked, and I've set the color to be somewhat of a brown color. Select OK and select OK. Now when I press the F9 on the keyboard here, you're going to now see the overlay from the floor below. And since I've turned on that floor framing, you can now see exactly where that framing is. And you can even send this out to your construction drawing, so when your framers and your plumbing guy are out on site, they kind of get the idea that, yeah, that's a problem to put the framing right in the middle of the toilet. So what we're going to do here is, let's go back down to the floor below here. Let's go over here and go down to the floor below. Again, the reference, if I toggle that on and off, you can turn that off. Let's turn that back on for just a second, and I'm going to use the W on the keyboard, and I'm just going to draw a line right through the middle of that toilet. That's just a temporary line that I'm going to use. And we'll turn off the reference display, and let's go back in and turn that framing layer back on for the floor framing. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and slide that over to the side of the toilet, and then use the copy tool and reflect about that line that we drew. Wrong way. Hit undo. Got a little ahead of myself. So try that again. The copy and reflect about that line, and then I'll just delete that line since it's not needed. Now in the elevation view, you can see clearly we have room to get our plumbing through there, and if you want to show the added detail for that, you can just come in here and draw a rectangular 4-inch box that would basically represent that. And let's put a fill style in there, solid, and let's change the color to a black gray. Select OK, and now you can see that plumbing, and we'll just slide it up so that it represents where it's going through the floor. So you can show that detail in there for your design. Now the final thing that we're going to do in the video is I want to show the blocking. You'll notice that my grab bar doesn't have any blocking. Let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So really the easiest way to do it is just to use a crossbox. Let's pull down a little bit. And for our shower blocking, let's just put a crossbox in here. And if I turn on my temporary dimensions, you can highlight that and set those dimensions. We'll just zoom in here a little bit. So if that's a 2 by something, then you can set those dimensions and then precisely locate it. Now the other thing for blocking is, let's say that you actually want to show the details for your framer. Let's come back over to our plan view, highlight this wall, and in the lower menus, you can actually open up that wall detail and see the framing. And what I want to do is use the build wall bridging in here. So we'll just come in here and put the wall bridging. You'll notice it updates in the cross-section view, right? And if you highlight that wall bridging, let's go ahead, before I do that, let's go back into our plan view. And I'm going to grab that grab bar. Let's copy it and reflect it around the wall. So I now have a grab bar on both sides of that wall. Back into the wall detail. If I highlight that wall bridging, double click on it, let's change the thickness to 2 by 8 effectively. And we'll just select OK. And now you can see where that is. Obviously I have to move it down, but if I come in and add my dimension, let's go ahead and just run a dimension line down through here. It's going to pick up quite a few things that I probably don't care about, but that's okay. Let's just pull off that bottom one. Highlight our wall blocking, and let's change that to something like 36. Actually, perhaps 34. And now you can see where that blocking applies right in there. And I can take this detail on the right-hand side of the screen and send that out to my construction drawings, or pin it up on the wall that's going to be modified, and make sure that it gets framed correctly. Well, that's an added detail if you have the Premiere version that you can use. I also like to use the crossbox for added things like our shower bench. If I want to come in here and just notch that out so that it's not seen. Let me put that over here, and we'll just draw that in place. And then you can show that level of detail. And let me open up my final layout page and I'll show you what it actually looks like. So what I've done here is, in the upper left hand section is that wall detail we were just working on with some call out text, and then the fixture wall with the dimensions and the center lines, and then off to the far right hand side is our framing detail showing the dimensions of the framing blocking for the grab bar, our valves, and our shower head. And then in the bottom right hand corner is just a framing overview, and I guess there's real no purpose of that other than it just shows the maybe some of the detail of where the framing members are. So that'll wrap up that section of the video. The next component will be looking at some rendering and 3D model techniques in the following video. So continue on watching, or skip ahead to the next one you're interested in.